If you stood at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea 6 million years ago, you wouldn't be underwater. You'd be standing in a scorching desert canyon almost 2 miles deep, walking across a crust of salt thousands of feet thick. This environment was the result of shifting tectonic plates. The land in this region had been forced upward, creating a continuous bridge of rock connecting modern-day Spain and Morocco. This ridge acted as a dam, sealing off the Mediterranean basin from the Atlantic Ocean. Without the Atlantic feeding it, the sea evaporated under the sun, leaving behind a barren wasteland in an event known as the Messinian Salinity Crisis. This 3D cross-section shows the physical imbalance that evaporation created. On the right, the dry Mediterranean basin forms an immense void dropping 2 miles below global sea level. On the left, the entire Atlantic Ocean sits highly elevated, pushing directly against the rock. That extreme difference in elevation meant millions of tons of water pressure were bearing down on the narrowing strip of rock that held back the ocean. With the Atlantic Ocean suspended 2 miles above the floor of the basin, the physics of the site were unstable. Any small crack or subsidence in the land bridge would inevitably widen until the water levels on both sides equalized. Around 5.33 million years ago, the Earth's crust shifted again, causing the land bridge to sink. Eventually, the Atlantic Ocean crusted the mountain ridge and began spilling over into the dry basin. What began as a trickle quickly turned into a catastrophic breach. The rushing water scoured away the rock, eroding the channel wider and deeper exponentially. The erosion hollowed out the stone until the mountain ridge completely failed, unleashing the full force of the Atlantic Ocean all at once. The structural collapse of this land bridge was the definitive inciting incident for the most violent flood in the history of the planet. This bar chart puts the scale of that breach into perspective. The water rushed in at a peak discharge of 100 million cubic meters per second. That is roughly 500 times the flow rate of the Amazon River. The water fired through the newly opened channel at 72 miles per hour. The friction of the water was so intense that it dragged the atmosphere down with it, generating tropical storm-force winds deep inside the basin. As the floodwaters ripped eastward across the basin, they eventually reached a sharp drop-off known as the Noto Canyon near modern-day Sicily. This vertical scale shows the subterranean waterfall formed at the canyon. The water plunged 1.5 kilometers, creating a cascade 30 times taller than Niagara Falls. With the Atlantic pouring in, the sea level rose up to 33 feet every single day. The Mediterranean holds about 3.7 million cubic kilometers of water, yet 90% of that volume was refilled in less than 2 years. It was a transformation of a continent-sized landscape occurring at a speed rarely seen in geology. The flood was not just a water event. It was a sudden transfer of billions of tons of planetary mass into a concentrated area. This cross-section illustrates how the Earth's crust reacted to the weight. The incoming water was so heavy that it physically bent and warped the tectonic plates underneath the basin. As the bedrock bowed downward, the stress triggered extreme earthquakes across the entire Mediterranean region. The combination of rushing water and seismic shocks caused massive landslides, which generated 330-foot mega tsunamis that repeatedly crashed against the canyon walls. The weight of the water and the force of the earthquakes combined to permanently alter the physical shape of the region's geography. While the flood was destructive, it also repopulated a basin that had been a dead salt flat for hundreds of thousands of years. The Atlantic current carried vast amounts of marine life into the region, establishing the foundations for the biodiversity we see there today. Today, the Rock of Gibraltar stands as a silent witness to the exact location of the breach, a remaining piece of the land bridge that once held back the ocean. The thriving civilizations and ecosystems that exist in the basin today live in the final, peaceful state of a region once defined by the most violent flood in Earth's history.